Welcome to another episode of the Reboot Chronicles, a no-holds-barred forum with global leaders, authors, entrepreneurs, and CEOs about how organizations stay focused on growth and innovation in unprecedented times. I'm your host, Dean DeVias, coming to you live from Reviv's North American headquarters in Chicago, and we would like to thank you for joining us from around the globe today. I'd like to welcome the CEO of SpartanNash, Tony Sarsam, to the Reboot Chronicles. Founded in 1885 as a tiny candy and tobacco store in Devil's Lake, North Dakota, the Fortune 400 food wholesaler and grocery retailer is a strategic player in the global food ecosystem. SpartanNash operates a massive supply chain network that distributes products to every aisle in the grocery store at thousands of independent and chain grocers, national retail brands, e-commerce platforms, and U.S. military locations. They also own hundreds of their own stores, pharmacies, and fuel centers, with a global team of over 17,000 associates who delivered $9.7 billion in revenue last year. With decades of experience, Tony has rebooted dozens of brands, products, and companies as the CEO of Borden and Ready Pack Foods, as well as executive roles and other things at PepsiCo. Tony, it's good to see you.
Thank you, Dean. Great to be here.
Yeah, I usually don't talk much about people's background. It just comes out in the interviews. But yeah, you've had your fair share of running big companies. So I just love I love the way how you kind of grew up through the food system. And but the company, I mean, I had to do a double take on 1885. I'm pretty sure you might not have had electricity in that town at that point. So I'm not sure where to start. Just maybe bring us up to date. You know, the company.
Well, yeah,
the breadth and depth and your scale and all that. What are you guys doing?
Sure. Let me give you just a little bit of background, a little more color to what you just said a second ago, Dean. So we are a food solutions company. We deliver the ingredients for a better life to 2,300 independent grocers across mostly the upper Midwest of the United States, as you mentioned. And we also deliver those groceries and services to the stores that we run. We have 144 of our own operated stores. We have a business a really important business that we serve our U.S. military through the commissaries globally. And we give those men and women serving our country a taste of home wherever they may be stationed. So that's kind of the quick nickel tour of what we do as a company. And it's been a great run. The Devil's Lake, North Dakota, not a bustling metropolis, but a great founding place for the part of the business, the Nash Finch part of the business. Of course, it was a Spartan Stores part of it that started in Michigan, here in Grand Rapids, up in around 1917. So those companies merged about 10 years ago.
Yeah. How do you balance? Because you're also, because you're in the military, you've got to do a lot of international logistics too. It sounds like. Is that?
Yeah, we have a terrific team in Norfolk, Virginia that manages all that. It's complicated logistics, as you can imagine, but we have a team that's been that business has been around for many years, and they are very, very committed to that work and have great relationships with all the various suppliers along that supply chain to make sure the business gets done right.
Yeah, I was doing some research, and one of the things I liked about I'm just a business historian, for lack of a better word. Also, I love how one of the groups or divisions or movements you guys started way back was more like a co-op. It's like, how do all these stores band together to get better pricing and distribution? And is that still in your culture? A little bit of your DNA is the economies of scale, or whatever they called it back then.
Yeah, I think so. And the way to think about that is that we have a very rich culture of service, and that was sort of the real foundation of that work that was done over 100 years ago. Wow. And so we love to serve. It's one of our core behaviors. How we serve those independent grocers, we feel that's a way we serve those small communities that they serve as well. It's really important to us that we do a good job with that. So that is a foundational underpinning of our culture overall, is to be in that service industry, make sure those businesses can be successful and serve their communities.
Yeah. Consumers often hear buzzwords. So the latest one is AI, and now they feel like they're empowered to talk about it. A couple of years ago, it was supply chain. They'd never heard of it before, and they were empowered to talk about it. Now, nobody's really talking about it much. So let's talk about this just on the boring side of, we hear still a lot about extremely high grocery prices, and are those days gonna be here forever? What's gonna go on there? Let's start with that.
Well, on grocery prices, broad, they don't have a crystal ball, so I can't tell you what's out there in the future. But we've come through a period here recently where we had a run up on grocery prices. And it helped us to really think about how we wanted to behave in that environment. And so we created one of our transformations, our merchandising transformation, specifically to ensure that we actually were getting the absolute best pricing from the food manufacturers, and we can provide consistent and great prices and great services and promotional ideas to our customers during this time of the price run up. So all that was important, foundational work for us. We started doing about 2 years ago,
Yep.
and it was great. In that time, we created a system where we have justification for prices that were taken, and a better understanding, so we can actually again fight for the right price for our customers.
Yeah, I like that because it's always on the way up. People are always quick vendors, service providers, anybody. It's like, hey, have you looked at the price of diesel lately? It's like, so prices go up. But then I often find that when things come down, when it gets cheaper to operate or there's more efficiencies, they don't always lower the price. And I'm not talking about the stores. The whole system is
Mhm.
just inflated. So do you think that has supply chain become more efficient? So maybe the actual cost of efficiencies are getting better?
Well, supply chain efficiency is a very, very important part of our business. If you think about our core capabilities, it's one of our core capabilities is to be a great operator and really leverage that capability,
Right.
because it does help. To your point, it actually does help make sure you moderate the inflation and those costs of goods to our customers and ultimately to the end shopper. So we worked very hard on that. We started the supply chain transformation when I first got here to ensure that we could do that and make sure that we were a good operator and using those best tools that were available to us to move the business forward that way, so we could be consistent, predictable, and again to hold those prices down.
Yeah. I'm an advisor to a PE group. We just invest in food companies, so next gen, food companies. A couple of them have been on the program actually, like Gotham Greens, very
Yeah.
innovative place, right? Um, but transparency is really important to them, and food safety, and every time they're selecting an investment, it's like, hey, are you really walking the talk there? And some companies do, some have a lot of work to do. What are you doing to help in the area of safety and transparency?
Yeah, we think that's also very important to your point, and it's something that's frankly it's a little bit debated in the industry about how far you go to make sure that and the investment required to make sure that the
Exactly,
company's
that's why I brought it
transparent.
up right after cost. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so because it is a costly endeavor, and but we've decided to lean in hard there. So we've got an arrangement with Repositorac that's going to help us on that journey, and we're
uh,
taking an industry leadership position in ensuring that we can actually comply and be ahead of those requirements that the FDA and others are putting forth on transparency. We think it's a place we can lead and be a force of good in the industry. So we're working that very hard right now.
yeah, I like that, and I like that you did partnerships. We'll get into that in a minute. We love to talk about innovative or driving innovation and growth through partnerships. But another topic maybe related to that might be a stretch is food waste. Is that something you can help with, or I mean, obviously you own your own stores, so you know what to do there. But you're
Yeah.
basically you're more of the inbound distributor. What's going on there?
Yeah, it's a great point. And food waste is a very important topic as well. In our country, unfortunately, does waste a lot of food, and there's whatever those reasons for that are. We also want to make sure we make progress there. So we've actually launched last year a very big effort to control what we call shrink in the industry. Right, so this
Uh,
is the stuff that can't be sold and has to be either sent to waste or sent to a farm or something. And there's a great many tools we've deployed there. We have processes we've employed that are actually helping us with the consistency of our supply and our fill, so that we actually have the right stock and we're not overstock in times that can cause some of that pressure around food waste. And we're looking for avenues to make sure we can distribute as things get closer coded and get things out to consumers in a way that doesn't have that product wind up expired and on the waste heap. So it's a subordinate piece of our supply chain transformation, but that the overall shrink control is a really important part of our focus right now. And we want to be a positive force for good in saving that food waste.
yeah, I've looked at some technologies. I don't want to derail this, but it's that actually can help preserve food longer. And if that ever,
Mm.
this stuff is early stage, of course, but if it ever could be perfective and actually put into the supply chain too, it could be an interesting prolonging the life versus monitoring the waste. Kind of. Any other cool technologies that are helping your industry?
We are always looking at technologies to move us forward. We know that's actually really important for our business. So I have a couple I'll mention. So we have a inventory management system in our stores. It's
Mhm.
called Tally. It's a robot that runs up and down the aisles and actually checks what's on shelf, takes a continuous view of that. helps us check for the right pricing, the right in-stock control, and gives us an overall kind of perpetual inventory. Phenomenal tool that actually that has the effect of making sure the consumer has the right product, the right price on the shelf, and it takes away tedious work from our associates. So our associates can do things that are more customer facing and provide better service.
Tedious and error ridden.
Yeah. So that's one that's
So
really important for
it's not
us.
picking or placing, it's just monitoring and
No.
measuring. That's brilliant.
Yep.
I love that.
Yeah. It sends a message. Hey, this one's out of stock. This tag
Got a
doesn't match or
Twinkies, no more
whatever.
Twinkies and aisle. Do any of the teenagers or kids play with the robots and to bother you
Of
guys?
course they do. Have you ever met a teenager or kid? Yeah, we played with it all day
I
long.
would
So
have.
it
Oh
actually,
gosh.
of course, so as it approaches you, it actually whistles, right? So we actually had a woman say to us, a customer was in a store, and she said she likes it when the tally whistles at her, makes her feel young again. So anyway, but it's a great
So the
tool,
seniors
and
like it too. All right, I'll
every
stop
I
digressing.
guess so.
Sorry, Tony. Go ahead.
Yeah, there's many other tools. We have a transportation management system that's now helping us get the route to market more efficiently. That is powered by AI tools. We're piloting our largest warehouse right now. We have drones that help manage the inventory in our warehouse. So they actually fly through the air up and down the aisles and take this similar to what Tally does, but does it airborne. In the case where you have a warehouse, that's
I've heard
several
about those.
several stories.
Is it working? Is it reliable? I've heard mixed reviews on those.
It's amazing. Yeah. Now there's still. I mean, it's relatively new technology, so it's not
Yeah.
perfect yet. But I think it's going to be an amazing tool. And so far
I
so
love
far so
that.
good on that.
We might have to do an on-site episode once with drones flying around.
Come to Grand Rapids, man. We're ready for you.
I mean, they always talk about drones for end of the line delivery, but not so much. Yeah, all the warehouse stuff has been floor based. So yeah, I'll make a note of that one. So you're doing robotics, you're doing drones, you're doing AI. The AI is more of probably a software management distribution type of system.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
But you've got a big fleet, so it's probably just planning routes and stuff. The technology is probably saving you a lot of in terms of making you more efficient. Is it more of an efficiency thing, or is it more of, hey, this is how we grow and expand and scale? This is going to help us double the size of our company in 10 years, kind of.
Yeah, and those things work together very closely. If you're efficient, it gives you greater capacity. So it's amazing. You save a few minutes on each route. You multiply that by 650 routes you're running every single day. You wind up saving on routes. You may not need one more route, one more truck or something, right? And that saves you money and allows you to get more efficient in that regard.
Right.
Or you have more capacity, and you have more capacity to grow, and you have a more predictable way to get to market. And you can serve customers in a way that they prefer, where they can count on you to be there and be there on time. So those efficiency and effectiveness maneuvers actually work hand in hand a great deal of time.
Yeah, like that. When we look at innovations, especially when I'm teaching or coaching, CEO teams, we look at, what can you guys build yourself? What can you acquire and buy? And what can you borrow? So that's on the partnership side. So it seems like you guys are good at the partnership side, because it's not, a lot of these tools aren't in your wheelhouse. But as you look at growth and innovation and, what you should do versus doing through other companies or people or startups or universities, and what, how do you kind of sort through all that and keep your growth, keep your innovation pipeline going so it does drive growth?
And we learn from the environment around us, and so there's great tools and great vendors and great people doing wonderful things that we can learn from, and so we keep a very vigilant eye toward that. That element of being curious and learning all the time, I think, is so important. And we start there. We start by kind of zooming out, seeing how the world's operating, and then zooming in on the things that we think can be great endeavors for us. And we start by trying things like the example I just gave you. We put Tally in one store, and we put Tally in 4 stores. Now Tally's in 75 stores, and we'll have Tally in all of our stores probably next year. We want to make sure that these things work and we can learn and progress that way. And then we bring that process and that technology in and make it part of our organization. So that's sort of the broad process of how we do that.
Most transportation logistics supply chain, I'll just say transportation logistics companies aren't this sophisticated. So is this something that you've brought into the mix? And like over the last 3 years, have you become much more aware, attuned to this stuff? It seems like you're driving this pretty hard.
Yeah, perhaps. But let me take a half step back and just talk about what we've done over the last few years. I think that actually help
Yep.
color this a little bit.
Great.
So I got here about 3.5 years ago, and one of the things I did was I want to declare that we're going to be a people first organization. Firm believer that if you do a great job taking care of the people and the associates in your space, they'll do a great job for your customers. And I learned that over time with the other companies that I've led over the years. And so that was our opening day mantra here, and it is incorporated rigorously into our winning recipe, our statement of identity as a company. And it has to start at the top. So I brought in a senior team. We have a terrific executive leadership team of folks here. They have all joined since I've gotten here, and have that right perspective, the perspective of being operational excellent. They are great at what they do. They are high energy, and first and foremost, they are people first. And so
Yeah.
they wear that, they love that, and they bring people along in a way that helps get that engagement of a real people first organization. So that's a really important foundational element. And naturally, from that, you have people who are energized to look for the right things and ask the right questions and bring those technologies in. So I think if anything's changed, it's more about that. It's more about how our culture works
Right.
than it is about any sort of technical changes we've made.
That's the best lesson ever. When we look at rebooting companies on the consulting side, it's people, platform, and passion, and it begins with people, and then it's like,
Yep.
so how, did you have to get everyone like re-engaged in the the new future? Anytime you bring in new teams, things change, and how do you keep the passion going, I guess, is the question.
Yeah, that's a great question. And so a couple things. First of all, I think if you tell somebody or the organization or any group of people that, hey, our next endeavor as a company, or for as far as we can see, is to be all about you and to make you successful, make you feel like a winner, so you can do great work. That's a pretty easy thing to embrace, right? So we didn't get a lot of folks who said, "Nah, I don't want that." But you have to go back and earn that every day. You have to work that every day, and you are never, ever, ever, ever at that place where you can kind of rest on your laurels and say, "Hey, we've done it. We are now the great people organization we always aspired to be." It is a day in, day out rigorous process of ensuring that you're always better today than you were yesterday.
Right.
And so that's how we focus on it. And we want to be. I think about it. I want to be. I want to make that progress. I want to be better every day. I want to make yesterday jealous for how great today is, and people first. And so that's what we talk about all the time.
There's the headline of this episode. That's perfect. No, seriously, because you're walking the talk. You're that kind of a leader, and most I've done this. It's like it's all about you. Care about the culture, blah blah, blah. And then life happens and things get distracted. And you don't come back to it every day. You don't come back to it every week. You barely come back to it every month, and
Right.
people feel it, or like say they don't feel it, and the passion dwindles, and you have
Right.
mediocrity. It's like companies can get big, fat, and slow, especially if you're over 5 billion, right? But it's that connected tissue in between irrelevance, obscurity, and decline. I find passion is what fights that off and keeps people, whatever, on the fortune list and not falling off. So sounds like you're both defensive and offensive. But yeah, I just find that the whole culture thing. That's really why we like to have you on, because the ratings you get and the walk the talk stuff is important. And I do see that blending through to your I'll just call it your customer base. I mean, your comment about giving the military people a taste of home is like, see, that's very different from, we're just shipping them food. It's like, no,
Yeah.
we're giving them things that they probably miss from you know their local grocery store. I'm not sure what that means or how you do that. I'm sure AI can help that.
Well, it's a different feeling. That I mean, the front of what you said, they're shipping them food or giving them the food they need.
Yeah,
That's a fairly pedestrian way to think
that's
about
what the
about.
generals say. Give me my fuel. You're like, well,
Yeah, yeah, but we think hey, very, you're a young person. And my son's in the army. He's a young man just getting started in his career,
wow,
and you get deployed someplace in a foreign land, and you're there with your family, and it can be very unsettling. The work can be unsettling, the environment, and then you get a chance to go into the commissary and you see the exact same types of things you bought when you were back at home in the mainland. And it's a great source of comfort and a great way to kind of settle and feel good about your work and feel good about the environment you're in. So we take it that seriously, that we're not really just providing food, we're providing an experience and a feeling of being home. We think it's
yeah.
really just that important.
Well, just going with the growth innovation track. So, where do you see the company? You're 3 years in, so I'll say 7 years because that's your 10-year since you got here horizon. Where do you want to be in 7 to 10?
So 7 to 10. So we are wildly optimistic about our future and our ability to lead in this industry. And we believe that our winning recipe is the right recipe for us. That I mentioned our mission statement about delivering those ingredients for a better life and creating the experience with our customers where they really believe and they tell us eventually that they can't live without us. That's not just an aspiration. It's a real challenge. It's a challenge for us, and it's a call to action for us to ensure that we're providing all the right services, always improving, using the technology like you've mentioned here today, to improve that experience, to improve the operating capability, to improve the basic service and the feel of what we do for our customers. We think the team here is energized to win in that regard, and we see us actually driving great growth there and continue to bring in more customers and more folks into that family that experiences that great service that we provide.
And when you look at the roadmap, product roadmap or go to market, you've got wholesale, different beast than the retail side. And do you see still expanding on two fronts or maybe creating another front?
Yeah, we see a great deal of synergy between the two. So we have the stores that we run are on average slightly larger than the stores of the folks that we serve, but they're sort of in the same stead. They're mostly suburban and rural stores. They're mostly in smallish communities, and we use that experience, the fact that we can run those stores and we get an understanding of what our customers are doing, and think about the value of not just studying your customers, but actually doing the exact same work your customer is doing in a community. And
Exactly.
we learn about things like HR practices and IT practices and category management and pricing and all those things. So we can share that, and we share that in a very dynamic way with our independent customers. And we have sort of these intersections where we bring them in. We'll change a store and model something and it works. We'll bring them in and have them walk the store, and we'll tell them this worked or that didn't work. And we think that makes us a very, very different operator. Most of the wholesalers and most folks in our industry operate either no retail stores or they have a small hobby. In our case, it's a third of our business, so it's a really important part of our business. We have to make it great, and we can actually share those learnings and those tools with our customers. So I think it's a really nice marriage.
I love it. Yeah, that's why I asked it. You've got that intelligence. So I was sensing, hey, you could have a consulting side of this business that you'll do better than Accenture and some of these other guys, or quite frankly, they'll bring you guys in. Yeah, seriously, you've got not only great experience and data, but it's relevant and timely and demographically and geographically specific.
That's right.
Versus some companies are applying principles that they're learning from urban to rural. That's one bad example, right? And
Yeah,
what
that's
about
right.
brands like private label stuff? You've done some of that, right?
Right. We have a terrific private label brand. Our brand is called Our Family that
Hmm.
we sell in our retail stores as well as through our independent
That's a
customers.
good one. Yep.
And it's a terrific portfolio of products that offer a great product experience at a more competitive price. We have recently deployed a extension of what we call Finest Reserve. What we've learned is that shoppers are still keenly aware of pricing. They want great value. They prefer to not surrender on indulgence or the great experience they have from the highest end products.
Right.
So what Finest Reserve can do is it takes a very premium product, a premium experience, and a very indulgent experience, and gets it out there at a more competitive price point. So we've just rolled that out. We have some products like artisan pizzas, a number of spices and sauces. We have chocolates. We even have a wine label that's out in Finest Reserve right now, and the response has been absolutely terrific. People have loved it. So we're off to a great start with that. We see that growing in the future.
I love that. Indulgence, the CEO of Smuckers is using that as, the indulgent kind of brand. Says people still want that. And, at a price point, it's, at a price point they can obviously afford. That's good. What, can we talk a little bit about you and your personal side? So you've been, CEO of a couple places before you came here. And so what kind of prepared you for this in your last couple gigs?
Oh golly! So a couple things, I guess. Yeah, all the way back right before the flood, so to speak. When I was a young lad, we moved a bunch when I was a kid, and one of the characteristics I think that of good leaders amongst many is your ability to be nimble. And we moved 14 times when I was a kid, and
Wow.
every time we moved, I had to start up again, had to learn a new set of friends, learn new school, learn new geography. And that practice I was able to take into my adult life as well. I've moved several times as an adult, and you get good at very quickly assessing the landscape and what you need to do next. And I think that was good foundational experience for me as well, even as a young lad. I was always very curious. I love leading teams. I like watching what makes people tick and how they can perform better. And even back to when I was in sports earlier in life, sort of recognize the things that made people really fully engaged and made them feel great and feel like winners, and how that could change their performance. And I think that doesn't really change in the workplace. It's very similar to a sporting team in that regard. So I deployed those things. And that was sort of how the people first got started for me. Um, and I had the great fortune of starting. I started with PepsiCo, the Frito-Lay division of PepsiCo, and really fine place to learn and grow. It's
Best place
probably
for
one of the most.
training. Oh my gosh, you're very lucky.
Yeah, it's amazing, and it was pure serendipity that I signed up with them. But they told me when I was at Arizona State University in my undergrad, and I was a chemical engineer, and they told me I'd have an opportunity to do engineering, and then get into leading people fairly quickly, and that's exactly what I wanted to do. And so I got in. I was an engineer for precisely 7 months, and then I got assigned to lead the potato chip processing line in this plant, and I thought I died and went to heaven. It was the
Got you
greatest
out of
thing
the
ever.
lab. That was a great move.
Oh my gosh, it's great. I had a
Changed
team of
your life.
people.
Yeah.
We could see every day at the end of the day, you saw whether you won or lost. How many potatoes did you use, and was that versus standard, and labor and all that stuff. And it was the greatest experience ever. So I love that getting in that more comprehensive business leadership. And I never looked back. I took that and learned how to learn and grow with those ideas moving forward.
I bet. How have you changed in terms of people always ask me this? It's a hard thing to answer, but as a leader, as you've watched yourself from a kid at Pepsi, I was a kid at FedEx, right? Making all these mistakes. And, just as you've progressed or changed, as you said, moved into this agile leader. But what else have you noticed about yourself at this stage?
So I think the first and foremost is recognizing that there's foundational truths, and I
Mm,
tell people I learned about 86.5% of everything I know about leading people in the very first job I had. If you do that well, there's a lot of things that move forward in that same way, and they move forward because people are people. Now, what happens as you grow into bigger roles, of course, is that those leadership tasks get more complicated, and you have to think about, so what's this new world that I'm in? So among those things I have to think about, and I work very hard to make sure that I'm communicating messages that I can have an idea about how I communicate that means the exact same thing to my vice presidents as it does to a cashier or one of our forklift operators. And so I really work on that. I really make sure that my communication is clear, simple, solid, and meets people wherever they are in the organization. And I think that's an important life endeavor, right? Communicating and making sure your staff for success, you have the right people on the bus, so to speak.
hmm
All those people endeavors are so important. As a CEO, it's by far the most important thing you do. What I do essentially is I make sure I get my staffing correct. I make sure that I'm a guardian of the culture as we move forward, and I keep touch and I ask questions. And so and that's not maybe terribly different than other roles. Just gets a little more complicated as you move up the organization.
Yeah. I love how you always begin and end with people. Speaking of people, how are you attracting Gen Z Alpha, I guess, is next? The next
Coming
generation.
up.
You've probably got a lot of employees that have a high tenure in your company. I can just feel it. So,
Yeah.
they're probably starting to retire and you're bringing in the young ones. How's that going?
Everyone's
Looking for the secret here. So, any,
Yeah, I don't know if we have a secret, but here's what we've done relatively recently. So we have really dialed up our internship program. We have an internship program that peaks in the summer, but it really goes year round because we have people who work here during their semesters in school, and some of them take the opportunity when they graduate, then of course to come join us permanently. But a company like our size, well, we had about 20 interns when I first got here. We'll have 110 this year, and it's our aspiration to get that up to about 200. So we have
it's
a very
impressive.
robust
Nice.
internship program. That's a real tight shot pattern of age, right? Because they're people in their early 20s, and so what we find is it's great for them. It's great for us. We learn so much from the interns. We actually they energize the organization, what they bring, and what we offer to them is an opportunity to have this kind of experience in an essential industry, really learn and grow with us, and make a decision if they like this and they want to join. We've had a pretty high strike rate on folks who want to come in and actually make this a permanent home. So that's something we've done really kind of dialed up in the last couple of years. But that has worked well for us. I found that you can, if you do this right, you structure it right, you can hire all the Gen Z people you want as long as you think about how you do that and demonstrate the care and demonstrate that people first. They want those same things that I just mentioned a few minutes ago. It's not a different species, just a younger portion of the same species.
Yeah, exactly. We're all just really well-dressed Neanderthals, someone once told me. What about when you're talking to students? I'm sure you do a lot of talks in universities and stuff. How do they? What's your advice to not just hiring people at your company, but what people should be doing now to prepare themselves for the workforce?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I have there's a number of things I think, but the foundational element is about, I mentioned a moment ago, about continuous learning. I think it's just so important. And it's really interesting if you talk to people, especially you mentioned the university, you're talking about them when they're in the learning institution, right? And one of the big advice elements I offer them is that you don't stop. It's not like you graduate and that's not even graduate from learning. You've just started learning. And you need to continue that quest to be curious, and ask the questions, ask the right questions, ask that all important second question, to get the follow up, and keep learning. And I reference sometimes a book I read years ago on becoming a leader by Warren Bennis, and
It's a good one.
it's a great, I think it's a great book. So I was tasked with doing a book report on it. Whatever it was 1,000 years ago. So I tried to experiment. I did the book report. I did it in 8 words. I got a B plus, by the way. So the eight words were know yourself, know the world, act on instinct. And so that's my 8 words of advice to folks. And again, it all gets down to a continuous learning endeavor.
Works for me. Thanks, Tony. Really appreciate you being on.
It's wonderful. Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. You've been listening to Tony Sarsam. He is the CEO of SpartanNash. This is Dean Tobias with the Reboot Chronicles. I want to thank you for joining us today. We'll see you all soon.